Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the debut edition of Uncaged, the show where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of professional wrestling, and just analyze, dissecting, and deciphering the world of pro wrestling as a whole with some damn good topics. My name is Mike Larkin, and joining me on this fantastic ride, this fantastic journey into the world of professional wrestling, is my boy DC, Mr. Daniel Crimmins. How are you, Dan?
Mr. Larkin, I am quite well. It's good to be back in the saddle again. You and I, as the old song goes.
Mm-hmm. We're back in the saddle again, man. We're together again, and it feels good. It feels good. You know what it is, man? I'm going to say this right now. There's so much to talk about in the world of professional wrestling, and I figured, what's the best way to start off our debut here in the series here on Uncaged? Then, as you deemed it, and I will also co-sign with you on this, sir, the curious case of Tony Khan. What a great way to start the first episode than talk about TK. Now, for me, I'm going to bring this up first because I sent you, here's what it is about Tony Khan. And obviously, we'll talk about AEW and wrestling purists versus wrestling fans and everything that's encompassed with how he books. But here's one thing I got to say here to you, Dan. Tony Khan, every time he does one of these doggone interviews, whether it be written form or audio form, oh, my Lord. And we'll start with this one, and I want to get your thoughts after I read this whole thing. So he did an interview with The Ringer where he talked about his booking style. He talked about his wrestling thing, and you actually added on to this. So here we go. I'm going to read it to the people. So to start it off, folks, he said, I quote, "In 1995, I started doing an e-wrestling show called Saturday Night Dynamite, and then it moved around over the next many years. At one point in time, it was on Monday night, but at one point, it was also Wednesday Night Dynamite. Then I used that name, Dynamite, for many years, and it had always been a steady thing. I relaunched the promotion with a new territory, new wrestlers, and new stories every several years. I wanted to try something different. The one thing that was always the same was that the weekly show was always called Dynamite." And he finishes it off with, "It was probably around 2011 when I wanted to do more great wrestling matches every week. So in my fantasy wrestling league, I created a second show. I actually had a third show that never came to fruition, but it was kind of fun, and it was called Tuesday Night Tag Team Fights. I had these different shows, but Dynamite and Rampage were always the primary shows. I've done Dynamite since 1995 and Rampage since 2011. And as you put it to me, Daniel Crimmins, as a lot of people can take away from this interview, AEW is pretty much a glorified E-Fed. Your thoughts on what he said?
You know, I think, this one wasn't as bad. You know, to his credit, he is a fan. You know, I think the better promoters are ultimately fans. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd like to reference, you know, when you think of like TNA, for example, Dixie Carter was not really a wrestling fan. Nothing against her. I know she's probably a real sweet lady, but she was never really a wrestling fan. However, he is. Mm-hmm. And I think he's got a good, Dynamite's a good name, but to me it's generic. But I will say, to their credit, the new set design, which debuted this past, actually last night.
Yep.
It was a step in the right direction.
It was.
It was needed. And I don't know. I liked it. You know, I think it was a step in the right direction. I think it was a nice change. You know, maybe, I don't know. I think it's a step in the right direction.
I look at it from a stance with him, and mind you, everybody talks about like how Herb Abrams was a fan when you talk about UWF and you talk about what we saw on the dark side of the ring. When I look at a guy like Tony Khan, and I can respect it, but also at the same time, I'm always big about representation of your presentation. And we'll talk about his mannerisms here in a second, too, because there is one other interview we got to read here. But god dang it, man, it's like stuff like this, it just comes off the show. And there's nothing wrong with being a fan. There's really not. But I mean, you see people like, and Triple H is a fan in his own right, you know what I'm saying? But he has the wrestling mindset. Tony Khan has the fan mindset. And I just look at Tony Khan, and it's like you realize why people can also kind of be like a deterrent towards AEW. What I mean by that is Tony Khan, with how he acts and stuff like that, it's like, man, it's hard to be an AEW fan because with the way that he acts, it's just like, good Lord. You know what I'm saying? It's great enthusiasm, but at the same time, the dude could tone it down just a little bit, for God's sake, Like, we'll get into the serious matters here that he's dealt with MJF, CM Punk, and the Young Bucks, but it's like, goddamn, man, it's just like everything is like peaches and cream over there when everything around him is just like, you know what I'm saying? There's kind of different variations to him.
I will say, my biggest issue with AEW, again, they have a fantastic product. Yep. I would say probably about a solid 85 to 90% of their roster are solid wrestlers. Hmm. The problem is that they keep adding people that they don't need. I'm sorry, they don't. There are people that they don't need to be having on screen. Like, for example, Jeff Jarrett.
Yep.
Can Jarrett still go at his age? Absolutely.
Yep.
But do they need him?
No.
No, they don't. I mean, at the end of the day, like, focus on the people that you have. You got guys like Ricky Starks, mm-hmm. who is money.
Oh, yeah.
He's money. And you got people like... You got people like Daniel Garcia. You got Angelo Parker and Matt Menard. You got the JAS. Mm-hmm. Money. Focus on building them up, the guys that are going to be there. Because, let's be real. You got Chris Jericho, who's what, like 52, 53-ish?
Sure, yeah.
Realistically, how many more years does he have left?
Not a lot. I'm going to say give him a good, like, 4, 5, maybe. I'll say that, if I'm being nice.
I mean, if I'm him, I'm looking at, like, the time's ticking. It's... and especially at the level that he expects himself to perform at.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things too, dude. Like, you talk about the level that he is. I mean, he's working a lot of the young guys. I mean, he just did the thing with Action Andretti. Well, I'm going to say right now, impressive young talent. I know he's done his thing. He's done his thing at MCW. What do you think of them kind of making him like the 1, 2, 3 kid part 2?
You know what? I like it. I like this guy. It's in wrestling. You have those moments. Where you can have a flash in a pan and you see that and you're like, oh my God, who is this guy? And that they have your attention. Now, the critical part is what you do after that.
Mm-hmm.
You got action, and the fact that Jericho is willing to put him over clean,
mm-hmm.
and not just like a cheap, dirty finish. That was clean.
It was much like 1, 2, 3 Kid and Razor, top rope moonsault, boom, 1, 2, 3. Scott Hall doing the favors for Sean Waltman, much like we saw Jericho do with that standing shooting star press by Action Andretti. For me, dude, here's the thing. Like, you talk about, where do we go from now with this? Now, mind you, we saw him help save Ricky Stark, so obviously mm-hmm. I'm thinking, for Revolution, and I'm going to say this, you think we're going to get like some sort of tag thing with the Jericho Appreciation Society against Starks and Andretti, or you think we're going to get Jericho and Andretti in like a one-on-one big thing at Revolution? What are your thoughts going in that direction?
Realistically, I think it's going to be a tag match. I think it's going to be Andretti and Starks versus Jericho and
Daniel Garcia, somebody.
And Garcia, I think Sammy would make more
sense.
I think realistically, we're probably going to get Joe and Wardlow again for probably the Ring of Honor TV title.
It's very interesting. I mean, with what they just announced now with Bryan Danielson and MJF Iron Man match. It's a 1 hour Iron Man match, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a 1 hour Iron Man match, much like we saw with Brett and Shawn back in '96 at WrestleMania 12, much like we saw in 03 with Brock and Kurt on SmackDown. Man, first of all, MJF, you can give me, I don't know how many minutes, he'll do very well. I've seen Bryan Danielson in Ring of Honor go a full 60 minutes. But mm-hmm. Samoa Joe, like, is doable, and I'm going to say right now that is going to be one of the early match of the year candidates.
Oh, easily. You have, and this is what I love is, you can have match of the year candidates like early on in the year, and it's incredible. It's AEW has had a lot of match of the year candidates. It'll be interesting to see what 2022 brings. I know they've got a lot of contenders. I think a certain other company. You got Gunther and Sheamus. I'm really excited to kind of see where it goes. I think MJF, like I said, money. And if I'm Tony Khan, and I know MJF's contract is coming up out end of this year?
Yes, sir. The bidding war of 2024.
I think if I'm Tony Khan, I'm looking at it like I'm going to do whatever I got to do to keep him.
That's the thing too, dude. And I'm right there with you. It's like, how can you not? You have someone, and I'll be honest, dude, I've seen this dude. We're both New Yorkers. We know about the Northeast independent wrestling scene. I first saw him Creative Pro, New York Wrestling Connection, Limitless Wrestling, Combat Zone Wrestling, MLW, to where we are now. Dude is money. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And he has created this gimmick that makes you wonder, like, is this really him? Or is this, he has blurred those lines. He is this generation's Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's amazing to me. Like, you only get gimmicks like this every so often, Like, you got people that lived their gimmick. The Rock lived his gimmick. Austin lived his gimmick. Still does.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Like, what do you do?
I mean, here's the thing now. You have Cody Rhodes in WWE. William Regal's back in a vice presidential role, talent recruitment and stuff. He's got buddies there. I think he's one of those guys, and I've said this about many talents out there. Wherever they go, don't matter. I think they'll do very well. He's one of those guys. I think whatever company he goes to, wherever he signs, he's money and he shows for it within his work. Now, speaking of work, I got to bring this up because obviously she's not going to be with Saraya next week. But god dang, I had to say this to you, Daniel Crimmins, because I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning before I went to sleep. I wanted to see what was going to happen. And oh boy, something happened. What were your thoughts of the debut of Mercedes Moné in New Japan? Same here. Same here.
I said it on another fine program that we'll plug later. Don't get me wrong. Yes. Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, whatever you want to call her, she is absolutely fantastic. She's a great talent. Now, here's the problem. Up until most recently, we've really only seen her in WWE, which we know is highly produced.
Mm-hmm.
You got people like, that she worked with Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, so many amazing talents that, you wrestle them so many times, you know what, to do. And the Japanese crowd are a different kind of fan. If you botch in there, they will not forgive you.
Oh no. It's a different type of work rate, different type of work environment. And I'm gonna say this right now. Like, first of all, if she does execute that perfectly, I think it's like it's a Gloria Special, Gloria Guerrero style into like a DDT, but it just came out so wonky, and her promo was what it was. But I mean, the good part about it is we get now the Mercedes Moné. It's gonna take a while to get used to saying that against Kyrie and Cali for the IWGP Women's Championship. I'm excited. I think they're going to kill it. I think it'll be very good.
Not a fan of the hair, though.
No. Dude, she cut her hair. It looked like something straight out of, I think what they were saying, her attire was kind of like, looked like a cross between like a Statue of Liberty mixed with like Cleopatra. And I'm like, all right. I mean, if that's what she wants to do and she felt liberated, because sometimes when you cut your hair, it's a very liberating feeling, Dan. It's that image, you know what I'm saying? So I get it, but I'm not too keen on it,
Yeah, it's not. And like I said, the biggest thing is going to be, I think now, and I said it to some other people. I said, it reminds me of that promo with Triple H and Seth Rollins from, I think it was 2015, where Triple H says, "Are you going to become the diamond that we know you can be, or are you going to crack under the pressure because the pressure is on?" And I think with her, is the pressure, is she going to become who, honestly, we know she can be? And I will say, the match that she had with Bayley at TakeOver Brooklyn a number of years back.
Yep.
I will say that is one of the best WWE women's matches of all time.
TakeOver 2015, baby. One of my absolute favorites.
And the question is going to be, can she perform?
I mean,
now we got the rumors that, maybe she isn't going to be signing with AEW.
Right. Well, that's the thing too. Like, you talk about if she could perform, and it's so funny, like the trajectory of her career before she got to the main roster. Like, I don't know how much NXT you were watching before, like NXT became what it became. Okay. So for those who haven't seen like the original NXT when it first came into its inception here, like she was just like a plain Jane kind of girl, and she's even mentioned she was like there, but once she developed the boss character, the sky was the limit, as her theme song so apropos said. God dang, man, like she was starting the stuff with Bayley, the stuff with Becky, the stuff with Charlotte, getting to the main roster where she is now, global phenomenon. But yeah, now that she's here in the New Japan roster being a part of Stardom, you got girls like Kairi, you got girls like Mayu Iwatani. Like, there's so many Japanese girls that she can wrestle too, and I think that's going to be very interesting to see how she does in that style.
And I think one of the biggest complaints that people are going to make about her, warrant or not, is same gimmick as, Sasha Banks.
It is. It's the same thing. It's like, for me, when I saw her cut that promo, she did the little swag thing, her little mannerism there, and she just did. I felt like I was watching Sasha Banks in New Japan. I didn't see anything that was different from Mercedes Moné and Sasha Banks, the CEO of the division. I'm going to bankrupt you, bitch. Like, it's all accustomed to the Sasha Banks brand, man.
Now, I will say this, to her credit, she hasn't wrestled or worked in
months
before Mania, right?
Yeah, like that was around like April, May. Like that was the last time we officially saw her and Naomi together with the tag titles.
Exactly. So in that regards, like, ring rust.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna pass judgment. I will give her benefit of the doubt, but we'll see. I think also she's got her eye on Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So does she want to do full time? I mean, I think the benefit of working Japan, it works for her. It does. When you think about it, she can work however many days she wants, this, that, and the other thing. And I also feel that she would have gotten a better reaction had she debuted stateside.
Yes. I think when she debuted in the Tokyo Dome, very quiet, you know what I'm saying? Very quiet Japanese crowd. It was just kind of there. It was like she came and she went. Like, I agree. Stateside, man, if you're in Cali, like this one's going to be on the 18th, would have been totally different. But I mean, hey, Tokyo Dome is still a big building. It's the Egg Dome, as we all know. And I'm going to say this right now before we even get into more some AEW talk here, man. But god dang, I saw it. Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, tore the roof off that son bitch.
Oh yeah, you expect that out of Kenny.
Yes.
You expect him to be the best bout machine.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. And like, you have Omega and Ospreay going off their feud. Like, I'm gonna say right now, folks, if you've not seen Wrestle Kingdom, please go out of your way. It's a great show as always. Carl Anderson and Tama Tonga killed it. Okada becoming the champ again, beating Jay White, the Switchblade.
No comment. No comment.
I love you, Dan.
Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna go off on a little tangent. I get it. I get why it was Okada. It's the first Wrestle Kingdom post Inoki. It's Okada is the Japanese version of John Cena.
Yes, he is.
And I still think they should have gone with Tama Tonga in the G1.
Me too. I was all for the Tama going for it.
I've been a Tama supporter for years. You know that.
Yep.
Despite what everybody's saying, they didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And now people are seeing it. It's like, no. No crapped on them, and now you want to ride the Tama train.
Come on, ride the train and ride it, choo choo, baby. Quad City DJs up in here. But yes, no, I'm there with you. From Tama Tonga and the Bullet Club to what he's done, like I've enjoyed him. First of all, he's brash, he's cocky, he's honest, but he can cut a damn good promo and he can wrestle. And that's the thing too. Like this Japanese side of thing as well. Look at the Japanese culture, what we see with Japan and Noah. Like Nakamura and Great Muta was good. Mm-hmm. It was really, really good. And here's the thing: Muta he doesn't have the knees like he used to. He's not the Great Muta, but him and Nakamura are a spectacle, man. It was a spectacle, and it was good.
And the thing with Muta, he's Muta.
It's Great Muta.
Like, there are some guys that are just, like, you think certain levels, like God tier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got guys like Hogan, Warrior, Flair, Taker. Then you got Muta, Funk. Like, Muta's like basically the last of that generation.
Yeah, from generations of your Bruiser Brodies and all these amazing talents coming into fruition there and really selling their name internationally and stateside. Muta's one that sticks out, of course, the feud with Sting in the 80s and obviously coming back to where we are now. It's a generational talent and gap and showcases the history, which also brings us back to the topic here, Dan, because I got to say the history with Tony Khan is very appropriate here because the history of AEW, and here's what's funny about it, because we're talking about all this Japanese stuff and everything that encompasses a lot of the brand and what his influence is. Man, Tony Khan, the first time I saw the photo, I know it's the infamous photo. I'll put it on the screen here for you folks. But god dang, that photo where he's there at the G1 Climax in 2018 for Okada and Cody Rhodes. Did you think, because Tony Khan's there, then All In happens, and it's one of the biggest, best independent professional wrestling pay-per-views of all time to this day. Did you think that guy and All In, and then boom, we have this conglomerate that we've had for 3 years? Did you think that guy would become the biggest influence like we see now? Just that in the fan.
And you know, I think also when you think about it, Mike, I don't think people thought AEW would make it as far as it has.
It's the T-shirt company, as Triple H called it at WrestleMania, the Hall of Fame. He called it the Little Pissant Company.
The fact is, you know, fans want something different.
Yep.
And, you know, if you also remember, there were times where Tony Khan was backstage at WWE shows.
Yep, with Titus O'Neil and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, sir.
So if you had told me years ago when all this started that, you know, AEW would be where it is now, I wouldn't. I thought they'd do okay, but you know, you got a company that is getting a great, you know, they're doing good numbers. They've got their first video game coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
It is incredible, you know, the fact that they are doing what they have been doing and the growth they had during the pandemic when, you know, and to their credit that they still paid people.
Yes, they did.
You know, that's really, really something.
And it's funny you bring that up because, yes, the difference between WWE and AEW during the pandemic era, like, mind you, all these mass releases happened, and mind you, they both were safe in their own regard. But god dang, man, like, AEW still tried to make it more, you know, like, interactive, like, hey, man, like, this is a big feel. Now, mind you, it did feel like that with WWE, but it's just like, okay, here's some performance center students. Have some fun. But with AEW, it's like MJF is out there gambling with the Gun Boys, and the Gun Boys are making fun, and then there's Sean Spears over here. They're gambling. They're doing stuff like you need that stuff. You know, you need to put smiles on people's faces, especially during a tough time like that.
Exactly. You know, and it's the thing is, you and I have talked about it. Like, you know, life is extremely difficult. You know, we've got jobs, we've got, careers, people have, kids, wives, husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. They've got a lot going on in their lives. And, as human beings, we need an escape, from time to time. Whether that be television, movies, video games, hobbies, whatever. We need something. And especially with COVID, I mean, my God, like, I will say with WWE, it was more status quo. Like, it was, okay, this is what we've been doing. Let's just do this. I mean, they tried a couple different things. I mean, I'm one of the few people that honestly enjoyed Money in the Bank that year. I thought it was something different.
Mm-hmm.
It worked. For what it was, it worked.
Yes.
AEW tried different things that a lot of it really did work. We had that mimosa match between Orange Cassidy and Jericho.
Mm-hmm. Worked.
And they made things at Daly's Plaza work.
Mm-hmm. And there was some stuff that didn't work, like the explosion with Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley. Oh,
but
boy.
You know what? To their credit, I love that they have since made fun of it.
Well, yeah, you have to. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that, you can't be like, oh, God, look at what we did. You have to laugh at yourselves with that, and that's what you need to do. You really need to.
I will be honest. There was no way we were going to get a Japanese-style death match in America. Like, no. Like, although maybe not. I mean, we did get Nick Gage and Jericho.
Okay, that's a great point because I wanted to bring this up, and I've always said this. Now, mind you, first of all, the thing about what Jericho do in the death match, first of all, he's 53, and when I look at that, I don't think of Chris Jericho as a death match guy. It reminds me of like he's trying to be like Terry Funk when he was in ECW helping out the young talent. When Terry beat Raven for the ECW title at Barely Legal 97, like he ain't Terry Funk, that being Jericho. Nick Gage, we've talked about this. Paid his debt to society. The man cares about his fans, and that's why I admire. I know he loves his fans. I think that's wonderful. But what are people going to talk about? The fact that it's the first death match on TV, or are they going to talk about it because of Domino's?
Both for me.
True, but I'm from. I agree with you on from what you're saying, but I think with me, mind you, the wrestling was what it was. Let's exclude that out of there. It's a moment, it's a memory, but also when I look at the Domino's side of things, that is what a lot of people I think are going to laugh about. But it's so crazy, like to think, like, first of all, we're getting a death match, but also at the same time we got Domino's doing that. It's stuff like you never see, but then we have it.
I gotta wonder. Like, part of me thinks that they did that on purpose.
What, for Domino's?
Yeah.
Somebody stooged. Somebody stooged.
What if somebody's like, you know what? I wonder. But you know what? Like, to their credit, like the fact that Tony Khan. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things that you can look at Tony Khan that you say he's not doing it. But to his credit, the man is willing to try things.
That you have to give credit to, because if you don't try, then you don't know.
And I'm a Nick Gage fan.
I know you are.
Bringing somebody like Nick Gage in, he's a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot can go wrong in that kind of match, like especially when it's real glass.
Mm-hmm.
And Jericho has even said, like, that was, I mean, I will say to their credit, I think they wanted to do a death match, and like, who better to do it than Nick Gage, a guy that knows what he's doing. And he said, I believe it was Dark Side of the Ring, there's a way that you can do it and do it safely.
I think how you bring that point up of what Nick Gage said, I think for me, like every time I hear death match, I'm kind of like, and I'll be honest, it's not my favorite type of match, but I say this about any type of wrestling match, and I agree with you to put that. Keep it, first of all, safe and spectacular is the way to US is, but also number two, there's ways to do stuff without there being, like as like terrible as it is. Like, like look at Abyss. Like you and I both love Abyss and TNA. Like when he first started with the thumbtack stuff, and then we have Janice, and then he's doing the broken glass. Like there's ways of doing that where it's safe, but also it tells a story and the scars go into it. That's what I look at Nick Gage. I look at him as like another extension of Abyss.
You know, I will say with that match, like Gage was the perfect person, you know, and like who else was there? And it made you wonder, like, and that was a time like when you had Gage and Cardona, you had, you know, Dark Side of the Ring, you had fans thinking like Nick Gage, like Jericho's gonna get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you had that kind of match on national television, oh my God, it was something different.
It was. It's so funny too. Like we need a lot of difference in wrestling, which brings me to what we were talking about here with like AEW starting Howard on call, you know, full ties here. Man, when AEW first came into fruition and we started in 2019 when they got their TV, they had their big events. Like the WWE product, and I'm going to say this right now, was very stale. And I also tied Roman Reigns into this. Last time Roman Reigns was pinned was in December 2019 with the Baron Corbin thing where they were feuding with the dog food. Here's the thing. Roman Reigns has grown tremendously, leaps and bounds from where he was there. There's a lot of improvements going on there. And I know people say what they will about NXT, and we'll talk upon more NXT in our second episode. But it's not the NXT that we had. You know, it's not the black and gold brand. But I think when I look at stuff like that, it's its own identity now. It's not what we used to like, but there's still some good on it. Like AEW, like there's some stuff maybe that we don't like, some stuff that we do like with different regimes and different people coming in. There's something for everybody. And I think no matter the change, no matter the years, no matter the time, the memories, the moments, there's still going to be a lot of variety for people to. And that's the best thing about professional wrestling is the variety.
Exactly. You know, it's the spice of life. You know, it's like when you go to a grocery store, you know, you go down like a chip aisle. We'll say, you know, you go get some potato chips. Do you just want one kind?
No.
You like the different varieties, you know. I mean, maybe you get the same kind every time, and you know, hey, if that's what you want, okay. If you like WWE and all that, cool. Good for you. However, you gotta have the variety.
You do. I mean, there was the old thing with Vince. You talk about chocolate and vanilla. I mean, that was like Vince McMahon's big thing back in the day, chocolate and vanilla. Some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla. Hell, throw some Neapolitan over here. But it's one of those things where you need that. And this brings it to another point. Yeah. And I'm going to bring up the interview stuff because this also gets into the argument of wrestling purists and wrestling. It's the storytelling in wrestling and then just the matches. But here, I'm going to read this to you. I'll get my thoughts like we did the last interview. This was a big one with Tony Khan. So he did another interview, and he said, and I quote, "Wrestling fans are amazing. Amazing, amazing people. But I think in some ways, I think some wrestling fans, before you're like, why is this match happening? They shouldn't do this match. There's no build. Maybe it's the start of something. How do you know? Like people, when we announced there's going to be a trios royale and, you know, Mox and Darius are going to have a match. Well, first of all, they're both going to be involved in this match. Maybe there's going to be something there on Friday. We've already told you they're doing something else. I saw someone says like this match was unnecessary. What does that mean? You say it's not a way that people can watch TV anymore because every match has to have some kind of story to get into it. Well, what about the story that everyone wants to be the best? That's how most sports are. They're a storyline going into games and matches. So I get to the second part of that, but what about the story that everyone wants to be the best? That's how much most sports are. These are storylines going into games and matches. Did he just legit kind of like compare wrestling to video games or like wrestling video games? You understand what I'm saying? Like that phrase is kind of like a head scratcher. You know what I'm saying? Give me your thoughts and I'll give you my take.
You know, with that, like, I think what he intended was the fact that, you know, a lot of fans wonder, oh, why is that match, you know, taking place? You know, why this, why that? Mm-hmm. And I think it ties into what we were saying earlier. You got to try different things.
Yep.
And we seem to, a lot of people seem to forget that AEW is only, 4 years old? Like right around there?
Yeah, it's going to be 4 this coming year.
It's still a young company. You know, WWE has been around for ever.
Yes.
And so they know what works. AEW is trying to figure out what works for them.
I look at it from a stance too, and I see from both sides. Like me, I love storytelling wrestling. Like the big one that I'm into right now, like I love the storyline of the Bloodline. I love MJF and AEW. We'll talk about that all day long. Like Bray Wyatt and LA Knight, a lot of people were giving crap to, but now they're finally, because there's a break in December. There was no pay-per-view. Like what they're doing with LA Knight, first of all, another one who's gold on the mic, and he just finally they're letting him be LA Knight. And you got Bray Wyatt coming back. Like I'm looking forward to that. You have the development of Who's Uncle Howdy, which we all believe we know who it is. But there's the story that goes into it. Like I like that, and then we're gonna get the Pitch Black match. Like AEW, I love the story of MJF and Bryan Danielson. I like the direction they're going there. I think we could do more with Ricky Starks because the guy has money. The story between the Lucha Brothers and Pac against the Elite. Like there's a story there being the best tag team and how they've had feuds and whatever. Like that just shows up their story that I like there. And then there's wrestling matches like he mentioned, Moxley and Darius Martin. Why are they doing that? There's stuff like that. I mean, if it builds to more showcasing Moxley as what he is, I mean, that goes into like so many different varieties, Daniel. What I'm trying to say is like, man, if you have a role where you're like, people used to call it jobber to the stars, some people enhancement talent. If you're that enhancement, that's still an important role to make that person look good. So no matter how long how much time that you have out there, I say make the most of your time.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do.
And you need those enhancement talents. You need that.
Mm-hmm.
You just because I mean you can't have somebody like you can't constantly have Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson because one of them's got to lose.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have somebody like MJF and Mox always lose them.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing too. And then to finish it off here, and the worst criticism, the fakest criticism, there was this criticism of like people question if there were storylines in the show. Are you shitting me? There are so many in every show. Out of 5 or 6 matches in the show, most of them will have their hooks. I gotta say, on next week's show, every match will have a story going into it on Dynamite. Then there's weeks there could be a match of 2 wrestlers wrestling for the first time, and maybe it's going to lead somewhere for one of them, both of them together or separately. So that's that. And going through that, the way I look at it is like this: element of surprise.
Exactly.
You need the element of surprise in professional wrestling. And there's not a lot of that because whether it be stories of whether something's going to be leaked or what have you, we need a nice little EOS, man. We need that element of surprise.
Yeah. And you know what? Also, when you think about it, WWE, they have house shows.
Yep.
AEW doesn't. They don't have, the touring schedule that WWE does. So, I mean, you've been to house shows before, correct?
Yep.
So, how many times do you see a match that takes place on like let's say you got a Northeast run, you've got your Long Island, your MSG, you got your
Nassau Coliseum.
Exactly, you got all that, and you might have let's say Roman and Gunther, just example.
Just throwing it out there, yeah.
And maybe that works. Maybe they try that and they think, crowd really popped for that. Let's, and then they go to, creative and they say, okay, this is what we're doing. We're doing Gunther and Roman for whatever title, doesn't really matter. Come up with a storyline.
I think
AEW doesn't have that.
Right, and you made a great point there too. It's like you try it out on a house show, and maybe that could stick for pay-per-views and main TV. Like they would do the agent reports of like, let's try this person out here from OVW or Deep South or FCW NXT. Let's see how they are. Let's see if they're ready to go up. You need that. You need to have those reports to see what you're going to build to next.
Yeah.
But and you just put a lot of people's heads in of Roman Reigns and Gunther, which will be great. And speaking of that, just off topic before we go back to AEW, Gunther and Brock Lesnar, man. Oh my God. If they do that WrestleMania, sign me up, Dan. Sign me up.
I want to see it.
Me too. Ugh.
I want the chop fest.
I do too. Well, here's the thing too. And I know people crap on Brock Lesnar because all it is now is suplexes. Remember back in the Ruthless Aggression era where he wrestled. Like, here's the thing with that. Brock Lesnar can still kick the shit out of you and wrestle you. He has the mixture of fight and the mixture of wrestling. Like, I would not want to meet that man, Allie. Brock Lesnar's still a badass mofo. And then you got Gunther over here, who looks effing amazing, Daniel. Who looks effing amazing, cut so much weight. It doesn't even matter. I don't care if he's skinny, if he's a big one. The man is athletic and he's got the genes. And I want to see it, and he hits hard.
He looks scary.
He does.
And let's not forget, if you remember, I believe it was Brock versus Kane versus Braun Strowman. And remember, Braun got a little excited. Brock tagged him with the 1-2 and basically told him, slow it down.
Yep. Punch in the face and the clothesline in the Rumble. Jesus.
Like, multiple times, like, he tagged him. Like, he hit that man.
Mm-hmm. Which brings me to, like, the point that we're going to get Gunther and Braun Strowman now, which I'm very curious to see how that goes. I'm really looking for. That has me curious. I'm piqued, man. I'm hooked.
I swear to the wrestling
gods.
If they have Braun go over Gunther,
you won't be pissed.
You're gonna hear me scream all the way down in your neck of the woods.
Oh, I'm gonna hear it over here in Myrtle Beach, man. That's what's gonna be.
Okay, rub it in my face that you're where it's warm and I'm in the freaking Buffalo, New York.
All right, hold on here. We gotta talk about this, folks. Daniel Crimmins is not a happy boy because no, he's not. So, growing up on Long Island, I've gotten the same weather that he's had, being a fellow New Yorker. But in South Carolina, we don't get the snow. He's still cold, and I've been checking it on it. How is it over there? Are you still cold? Are you still snow? What's going on over there in your woods?
So right now it's about 36.
Jesus.
That historic storm that we had here about Christmas. Week later, and that snow's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Where I am now, the city, Buffalo City, is still pretty in. The thing of it is a lot of snow came down quickly, and we had like Category 1 hurricane strength winds.
Mm-hmm.
You had temperatures that got down to like -30.
It was scary, man. I saw the reports.
People froze in their cars. Like, think of the movie The Day After Tomorrow.
Oh, man, Dennis Quaid, yes.
Think of that scene, where, the helicopter crashes, they get out, and I mean, certainly not to that extreme, but yeah.
Oof. Now I'm going to say this to put a little wrestling tie in. Are you going to be like when they didn't have the Raw and they just showed everything from the headquarters? Are you going to have JBL on top of the house just doing the reports? Oh, my goodness. That's what it was? Oh, poor Dan. But yeah, no, the plus side about this is, besides the fact that it's not cold, what's cooler than being cool, ice cold, to quote Outcast and Hey Ya. With Tony Khan, we got to go back to this because the topic of the day is Tony Khan. We're talking some pro wrestling. Tony Khan, I'm going to put it like this. I like his enthusiasm, but I think his enthusiasm gets him into shit. What I mean by this is we're going to get into the representation of the presentation here. The media scrums, and we're going to talk about live. We'll do the live first. So when
we'll do it live.
We'll do it live. We're live, pal. So when he goes out there and just starts stomping his foot and trying to be serious, and he's jumping up and down like a monkey. And here's the problem with him. Like, you know me, I've done ring announcing for what I do, my gig outside. When you go to ring announce, folks, you want to look nice. You want to look the part. You got the suit. You got the tie, the whole nine. This mofo was out here jumping up in his friggin' sweatpants and his friggin' sweatshirt. And you're wondering probably, why am I nitpicking this? What's the problem with that? Representation of your presentation, right? Daniel, when you look at somebody like that, you see Tony Khan, being this conglomerate, it's AEW, it's his father's money, taking it out of the inheritance, Shad Khan, the whole nine. Does that man look like an owner to you? Does that man exemplify that's an authority figure, or is that exemplify, hey, I'm one of you? Go ahead, I'm sorry, Dan.
To me, you may look at that, and that's fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
I look at it like behavior. I think most of the media scrums are go off without a hitch and great.
Yeah.
But I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about that one. You know the one.
I know the one. Well, the one before that even too. We got to mention the other one when he friggin' is screaming. And mind you, first of all, who cares? What Eric Bischoff's opinion is Eric Bischoff. But when he goes out there and does this fucking guy and that whole stuff, that was the precursor to what we got. That was a precursor to what we got.
So let me point out that whole scrum, the all-out one with CM Punk.
And the Young Bucks, yep.
And I have mentioned this to other people. The second that Punk started spouting off, Tony Khan should have found a way to like take it over.
Okay.
And like he should have said, okay. And you could tell, like, when Punk was talking, Khan did not look comfortable.
He had this look.
Like, oh boy.
He had that look. All right.
Now, unfortunately, because, none of us were there, every single person that, has read an internet article or seen a YouTube video, none of us were there. The people that really do know what happened aren't going to talk. With that being said, I think it really falls on Tony Khan to get a handle on things. And, you're the boss, fucking act like it. If you have to punish one person and make an example out of them to say, pardon my French, you fuck around
and
you're gonna find out.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to add on to that because I love you. And this is why same wavelength. Here's my thing. I'm not going to go out there and say that, Tony Khan's a pussy. No, he's not a pussy. I think he's not. But he needs more oomph. I'm going to use the word oomph. Yeah. He needs more oomph. And the reason why I say that is Vince McMahon, whether you like him or not, if they did what they did at the scrum, Vince McMahon would be like, it's my goddamn company. If you don't like what I'm doing, you can get the fuck out. That is what Vince McMahon would have done to CM Punk.
What he would have done,
God,
as soon as they left, he would have either suspended him or fired him.
Right. They would have been dealt with, is what I'm saying.
But then the next television taping,
yep,
he would have made him drop the belt in some embarrassing fashion.
Oh, yeah. It's like when RVD and Sabu got caught, and then RVD lost the title to Edge, and then he lost the title to the Big Show in like all one full swoop.
Which, if what I remember right, Sabu was the one that had the drugs.
Yeah, Sabu was the one that had the drugs. Yes. Oh, my God. That story. Rob Van Dam with no shirt on getting arrested by the cops. Yes. So, but that was the story at the time. And I mean, I think you brought it up, and I'm going to give him credit because we'll plug him at the end. But you, on a certain show, which we'll plug at the end, you on that show even said, you brought up a great point, and I love you for this. When Batista and Booker T had that fight at the SummerSlam photo shoot, that get together, because they legit hated each other, and they had to feud with each other for 3 months because the feud was Batista was going to get the belt back from Booker. And those matches sucked.
And Mike, to cut you off, you got to say it right. King Booker.
Thank you. I'm sorry. King Booker. Daniel. King Booker and Batista had that feud. The matches sucked. And you could tell that they didn't want to work with each other.
Oh, yeah.
This if they all could get on the right page and the right mindset, and they could talk like Dax has said he wanted them to, they could make a lot of money off of this, much like Matt Hardy and Edge did.
To their credit with that whole feud, that Matt Hardy Edge thing, was probably one of the most cringeworthy feuds I have ever seen.
You're gonna go that route?
That was cringeworthy.
Okay, all right.
Now I will say this, if Punk does come back, realistically, do I think he's coming back? Not really. I don't.
I don't either. I mean, he made jokes about it with John Morgan when they were doing the MMA shows, like, hey, you don't want to have me in the locker room. I'm bad. He made jokes on the MMA stuff that he did, but that was really the only thing he said about it. And of course, what came out, the Instagram story where he was talking about his numbers on YouTube and hey, say what it will, but I'm still a draw. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of showing off a bit. That's the latest story. So hitting on that, with Punk, what do you think about him doing that for his IG story?
Honestly, I could really care less. I would. Let me rephrase that. I couldn't care any less. I will say this. I look at things, and I said it on that wonderful, wonderful program. It's money. If I am Tony Khan and I can figure out a way get this to calm down, cooler heads prevail, I'm going to do it. And like I said, I'm going to tell people, I'm going to say, look, I'm the boss. This is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Either get in line or get out.
I look at it kind of like with Triple H and what they're doing with the NXT people. What I mean by that is Brady Booker, remember Bodie, who was with Andre Chase on NXT, the one that they okay. Like, he's in the video. You feel bad for the guy because he lost his job. No, you don't want to see anybody lose their job. But he's crying and he felt embarrassed, and then the reports come out that he was lazy. Now, mind you, if that doesn't say, hey, we're watching how you progress in NXT, and I also equate this to what we saw in AEW, which we're going to get to a certain angle here. But if you're not progressing and you're not showing up and showing out and working hard, then we don't want you. You know what I'm saying? Tony, but Triple H is not like Vince McMahon where he's like, it's the fear of God. But you know who the boss is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With Tony Khan, it's just like he has that. And mind you, I love the fact that he loves his talent. I love the fact that he's friends and everybody's cool. They want to be tight. And the hugs at the media scrum, it's all about the hugs. But the problem is when it's time to be a boss, hugs go out the window. Friendship goes out the window. They are still your employees. Tell them, hey, this is it. And I mean, WWE took the subtle shot at him with the whole thing with Andrade and Sammy Guevara and this whole thing. If you recall, during the DX reunion, Triple H did that thing, stop it, no fighting. That was the subtle shot he took at Tony Khan for
that. I will say this, where I would tell Tony Khan, don't touch me. Like, I do not like people touching me. Like, leave me alone. Do not touch me. If I don't know you, just back up.
Just stop with the hugs and he puts his hand and he does the.
But you know what? I will say this: there is no better hype man for his talent than him.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know what? The fact that he does that for his talent, I love that. I honestly do. Because you have somebody that, doesn't look at his people like they're just pieces of meat, like Vince does.
Yes.
And you've got so many amazing, amazing people that work at AEW. And I think part of the problem is that there's too many cooks in the kitchen. And, Tony Khan has too many people trying to tell him what he needs to do.
Yeah, he's got the Young Bucks in one ear. He's got Kenny Omega in the other. He's got Jericho. He's got all these people. But also at the same time, when you have this lengthy locker room of knowledge, like your Jerichos, your Jerry Lynn, your Bryan Danielson, Dustin Rhodes, your Moxleys, everybody, like, do you think we had William Regal there? Like, does Tony listen to him, or does he listen and just like, I don't think he listens. That's his problem. I think Tony needs to listen a little bit more.
Like I said, you've got too many cooks in the kitchen. He's got too many people in his ears. Now, if I were him,
yes,
honestly, I would have a council of 3. I would have 3 people that I would go to. And who are my 3? I'm looking at William Regal. I'm looking at Dustin Rhodes. And I am looking at somebody like Jericho.
Yes.
Actually, no, not Jericho. I'd probably go more like, honestly, Jim Ross.
Yeah. You know what it is too with JR?
Here's the problem. Here's the problem with Jericho. Jericho is still an active competitor.
Yes. But
and Dustin's the son of one of the greatest of all time.
Yes.
William Regal, one of the greatest minds for talent. Most of the people that came through the Black and Gold brand in NXT were Regal's guys. They're not Triple H's guys. They were Regal signings.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy, Kevin Owens, Gargano, Ciampa, like Adam Cole, the Undisputed Era, that was all him.
You put up a great point too. It's like when we saw Jushin Thunder Liger against Tyler Breeze at that takeover. Who do you think got Liger over at the event? Regal.
Yeah. And I'm going to make this prediction right now. This is kind of a subject. I'm calling it right now. Well, I know who one of the surprise entrants is going to be in the Royal Rumble this year.
Hit me, Dan.
Great Muta.
Ooh, I like that. And then do the Hall of Fame induction.
Exactly. It could, because, and this is what I said on the other show, which we're going to be plugging that very, very shortly. If you think about it, Triple H isn't stupid.
No, he's not. He's
gotten something out of this deal. He's not going to just do something and just say, "Hey, here, take one of take my talent." Well, let him. You can put him on your show. He's not going to. No, he's gotten something from Pro Wrestling Noah. Whether, and honestly, I think that was Muta in the Hall of Fame. Muta in the Hall of Fame. I think it was Muta in the Rumble, because I don't think Muta's ever been in a Royal Rumble match.
No, I know they've had Sasuke perform in the WWF. They've had Liger. They've had all these people, but we've never had a great Muta.
Yeah. And, I think, there's a story of WWE trying to make inroads into Asia.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how you do it. In Japan, he didn't have to let Carl Anderson compete at Wrestle Kingdom.
He didn't.
He could have said, he could have told Carl, he could have said, "Look, give him the belt back and just say, have a nice day."
No, but
he getting something out of this.
Oh, yeah, and I think we're going to see that continue in the future. I mean, you look at the span of what we had at Wrestle Kingdom. Carl Anderson, WWE talent. We had a lot of these people. I mean, for instance, like you mentioned, Mercedes, Monet there. You had a bunch of everybody there from different organizations working, and it's wonderful to see. And I've always said this, and you and I have discussed this as well. If we can have more of this in wrestling, unity, that's what we need.
Exactly. In the old days, it was like you had one pie,
mm-hmm.
and you had Vince hoarding it. You had Ted Turner hoarding it. You had Paul Heyman, trying to sneak in and, grab what he could.
Yes.
The problem is you have one big ass fucking pie. There's enough for everybody. I could easily see, not necessarily a full-on return to the territory days, but that kind of thing. Maybe you have one central title. And then you have, for example, let's say, the Universal title, and you have it go on to, different promotions. Maybe it's, in New Japan. Maybe it's WWE. Maybe it's AEW. And like I've said it to the guys, this is an exciting time to be a wrestling fan.
I look at it from a stance. Well, God, I'm sorry.
Quote Tony Khan in that classic line, "Let's fucking go."
Yes, let's fucking go. But that's the thing too. Like you mentioned, guys like JR. Absolutely. I mean, for what he's done, the knowledge that he has, and people say what they will about JR and his commentary, what have you. JR is still one of the greatest minds in the business. And for me, you're talking about all these people, and you're talking about one big piece. There's one big pie. The territory days of what we saw in the 80s and 90s, Vince McMahon Sr. and everything that we had there, respective promoters and everybody working on one card, and it's wonderful. What Tony's doing with AEW New Japan, and I mean, now he bought Ring of Honor. I think that's one of the other topics I got to mention. I love Ring of Honor, dude. I was at the Sports Plus events, Lake Grove, Colt Cabana, Homicide. Give me some Jay Lethal. Give me some Low Key. Give me some Nigel McGuinness. Give me some Doug Williams.
Young Briscoes.
Yes, Young Briscoes. Yes, and Bryan Danielson and James Gibson when Jamie Noble wrestled in Ring of Honor. Oh my goodness, take me back, Daniel. But the thing I have it too is I love Ring of Honor and Tony Khan. WWE wanted that library, and Tony Khan's I'm gonna buy this whole thing. And then there's the thing that happened recently where he tried to get the TV deal, but instead we got Honor Club. I got to ask you about the Ring of Honor stuff. Does it hinder the fact, because a lot of people are like, man, I'm tired of seeing Ring of Honor on my damn television. You know what I'm saying? Less of the Ring of Honor, Tony. What do you think about the acquisition of him buying Ring of Honor, and then boom, now we have Honor Club. There's no TV deal.
The thing with Honor Club is that they already had something. They already kind of had it. It was a shell. And what I would have done, you had this thing with Warner where you're on Why not reach out to them and try to do HBO Max?
See, that's a great lynch path there. It's a lynch way, but it's just like he didn't. He went for like, all right, let's see what happens with Warner. Then nothing. Then we get the Honor Club again. And mind you, a lot of people are. Well, here's the thing too. I'm going to put this into perspective here. I know we're bouncing around here, but god dang, man, he's having people pay 50 something bucks for pay-per-view when people can just watch the Peacock for like 10. You know what I'm saying? Cheap. And there are still some people that buy WWE pay-per-views and not use the Peacock. But at the same time, you got people spending 50 bucks and then you want to spend another 10 bucks over here. So it's like they're just spending money out the wazoo here, Dan.
What I think you do, you talked about a TV deal for Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times I've said this. You've got Dark Elevation.
Yep.
Why not turn them into the Ring of Honor, TV, and then you can still put it on YouTube, and then that way you run ads, so you still get ad revenue.
Agreed. I mean, I'm still the same guy that used to watch when Ring of Honor, when you missed them on TV wherever they were playing. I was the guy going to the website and going to ROH TV and just watching the full show there. I remember, and I think you remember this too. Before Impact got their deal on Spike TV in 2005, every time I come home, they would air in 3 or 4. When they weren't on Fox Sports Net anymore, I would go to the website and watch Impact on their website. So I mean, it works.
Yeah, and honestly, like. And one of my favorite matches of all time was Samoa Joe versus Kenta Kobashi.
Yes, the 2008 Ring of Honor. Yes, sir.
Like, I have never seen people that have hit that hard.
Oh, that was one of the best matches in Ring of Honor history. He's up there with Takeshi Morishima.
It really makes me sad that we never got Walter or Gunther versus Joe.
It does. It makes me sad too, and I mean,
just for a chop fest. Like, I can hear those chops from here.
Me too. And I also remember, I'm right there with you because I remember that match, and I think not too long after that, it may have been before, I still have the images in my head of Takeshi Morishima and Bryan Danielson when Bryan Danielson got his retina detached.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one of the most brutal things I've ever.
I mean, he was a big boy. Like,
he was Terry Bam Bam Gordy Jr.
Yeah. He was a Japanese Terry Gordy.
Yep.
And, it's, I'll tell you want to see something, if you can find it, Walter versus Sammy Guevara.
I believe he mollywops the living shit out of Sammy Guevara.
You know what? Again, I'm a Sammy fan.
I like Sammy, but I think his attitude sucks. I think he's a talented in the ring, and the outside of the ring, I think his attitude sucks.
I mean, to be fair, the Andrade stuff was not his fault.
No, it was not.
But seeing what Walter did to him, like, his chest was like black.
Yes.
Like, not the sound. If you remember Walter chopping Adam Cole.
Yes.
There is a clip of the Walter Adam Cole chop on YouTube. What the title of the video is, Walter chops the soul out of Adam Cole.
Mm-hmm.
Literally what he did. But, going back to the Ring of Honor and Tony Khan stuff, use Dark Elevation for Ring of Honor.
It's simple, but I don't know. Well, here's the thing with him, though. We talk about cooks in the kitchen. The man books everything. He books Dynamite, Rampage, Dark Elevation. He takes on too much stuff is the problem too, man. Like, he books all this stuff. Yeah. Like, he needs help. And that also goes to what we're talking about here. Like, there's been so much shifts in AEW over the years. Like, the 2019 Tony Khan into like the 2023 Tony Khan, they're different people. You know what I'm saying? Here's when Cody Rhodes left AEW, like, was that something when you saw that? I know a lot of us saw it, and we were kind of shocked, but we're also kind of like, all right, he's going to go back to WWE like we saw earlier this year, and unfortunately he's out right now. He's coming back. But did you see like a shift happen when Cody Rhodes said, hey, I'm out? Did you see that shift?
Oh, yeah. I was the one that told people it was going to happen. I called it. People said, hey, nothing's going to change. Everything's going to be fine. None of this shit happened when Cody was still there.
Okay. Here's my feeling on that. Here's why I agree with you here. Cody Rhodes when I say this, I don't hate the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. I don't. I think they're tremendous performers. And
Absolutely. Some of the best.
Right. And when we talk about this and when I laugh, I'm not shitting on Tony Khan. I'm just stating the facts. This is what this man said. This is what he's doing. We don't hate Tony Khan. I don't hate any.
Not at all.
But we need constructive criticism here. And I'm going to say this exactly. Right. Out of all the VPs, Cody Rhodes was the most professional out of the VPs because he wanted to do something. He dressed the part. He looked the part. He wanted to do something while these guys are over here dilly-daddling. That's my issue.
And I will say this, a report came out today, and maybe it's BS, maybe it isn't, that the Young Bucks still have not signed a new deal. And here's what I'm going to say. Okay. And I know I'm going to get crucified for this. And if Tony Khan, if the stars align and you hear this, you don't need them.
Dan, you just opened up the floodgates with that comment, Dan.
Hear me out. I'm going to explain my rationale here.
Yeah.
Are they one of the greatest tag teams of all time? Yes, absolutely. But look at your roster. Look at who you have. The Bucks, as good as they are, they need you more than you need them. If they want to hit you up for money, okay, go. I will find somebody else, and I will make them stars. You got Jungle Boy. You got Jungle Hook, which I guess is now a thing.
You got the Acclaimed. You got Top Flight. You got all these people.
Which I'm still kind of pissed that we don't have more of Hookhausen because I feel like that was money.
Well, that's the thing. He stopped and started that. We went from Hookhausen to now we got Jungle Hook. All right, here's my problem with that. I'm glad you brought it up, and I don't mean to rant on this. You went on your tangent. I'll go on mine, sir. Okay. Big Bill.
No.
Okay.
No.
We're going to talk about this. Big Bill. You mean to tell me that he's got to walk his ass out away from Little Hook, Little Bitty Hook, who's $160, $165, whatever. You mean
Soaking wet.
Soaking wet. You mean to tell me that Big Bill, who's a killer, when he was at Impact, he was a killer, and now he's got to run away from Little Hook.
Yeah,
it sounds like a name of a rapper, Little Hook. And mind you, I think Hook's a badass. His father's Taz. He's got the background, but you can't tell me that big old Big Bill, not to be confused with the Nick Jr. show Little Bill. I'm talking about W. Morrissey. You mean to tell me that he's scared of Little Hook? Where's the logic, Dan?
When I think Big Bill, I think Goldberg.
Yes. Okay. You're true. Yes.
I will say to his credit, W. Morrissey, he has improved night and day. Mm-hmm. He got himself clean. Good for him. The guy looks like $1 million.
Yes, and he's all here, and he's great.
And you know what? What I think he's trying to do, and I think it's smart business. I don't know how long his Ring of Honor deal is, but I think he's trying to, sweeten up his name for WWE so that when his AEW deal's up, he can go to WWE and say, hey, look what I did over here. I mean, it worked for Bobby Lashley.
I think it would work for him as well because the last time we saw him there, he was not in a good place. I mean, he wasn't having good. Okay, here's the thing, and I'm going to say this to anybody. If you have a bad match with Daniel Bryan, out of all people, you know that something's wrong here. But yeah, he was not in a good place. He got himself together, which is wonderful. But I mean, I can see the build is, can he suplex Big Bill? Much like, you know what this is? I'm going to make a comparison here. It's like ECW in 98. It's Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow. Morrissey is Bam Bam Bigelow to Hook's Taz.
Yeah, I can see it.
It's one of those things I look at. It's like Taz and Bam Bam.
And I will say this, Stokely Hathaway, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Bill Alfonso.
I can see that with the whistle and just he's running around with his yapper. Yep.
Calling people a raggedy bitch.
That's so great.
You know what? Like, I will say this to their credit, like, managers are such a lost art.
Oh my God! From the Bobby the Brain Heenans and so many Jim. Okay, I'm going to say it. I know it's a controversial name, but the Cornettes and people like that, absolutely, absolutely. The Heat Magnets.
You know, you got guys like your Paul Heyman. You know, you got like, I mean, we grew up, and we had like Mr. Fuji, we had Ted DiBiase,
Jimmy Hart.
Jimmy Hart. We had Miss Elizabeth. And it's Sensational Sherry. God rest her soul.
Marlena.
Like so many amazing managers, and I think Stokely Hathaway, he is an incredible manager, and you know what? I enjoy his shtick. I love it. Like I think he entertains me, and but the name Big Bill, really, like, just call him Morrissey. Like, don't call him Kaz XL because that's stupid. To quote Randy Orton, stupid.
Stupid. It's like it's like when Brodus Clay, when he came out on the Independency, he was Monster BC for like a brief period. For those that remember that, he was Monster BC before he was Tyrus, and it was funny. Oh God, I remember
Tyrus works for him.
It does, but like when he was
the dude has not aged.
He's not. He looks exactly the same like he did 10 years ago.
And you know what? Honestly, now that I've had a chance to marinate with it a little bit, him being the NWA champion,
I don't care. Good for him. Good for him.
Good for him.
Good for him.
I would have put it back on Cardona, but honestly, I think that was supposed to happen. But honestly, I think we're going to be seeing Cardona in a couple weeks. You know where?
Oh, well, here's the thing with him. If they bring him back, as he said, bring him back as Matt Cardona. Zack Ryder is dead.
Oh, yeah. And hear me out. Chelsea Green.
Yep.
Put her with Toxic Attraction.
Daniel Crimmins. All right, man. Okay. I like that. And here, first of all, I'm going to say this about Mandy Rose. With the money she's making, she don't need to go anywhere. No. You don't even need to go be in wrestling anymore. She don't need to go nowhere. Oh, but yeah, she's done. Like just make your millions. So
honestly, if I am Mandy Rose,
yes,
or Mandy Sakamoto, or what, or
Sakamoto.
Okay. Yes. So if I'm her, I'm giving Hollywood a go. I'm giving them a call.
Mm-hmm.
She's got the look. She's the blonde hair. The beautiful figure. Like I don't want to say AEW is a step back for her. Even going back to WWE is a step back. Like, you do not need wrestling. Hollywood.
The woman. All right, here's the thing. When we first saw her on Tough Enough, I knew. First of all, we're also going to be a little biased because she's a New Yorker like we are. She's a beautiful woman. You saw the charisma when she was on Tough Enough.
Oh, yeah.
Then you put her in there with Paige and Sonya and shined. Then her thing with Sonya, Fire and Desire. The woman has attraction, no pun intended. Otis. One of the best storylines of the pandemic era, Mandy Rose and Otis. One of the best storylines. And he got the girl. The girl.
The Mania match was like, it was great.
Like, you don't get that anymore. And people were like, it's funny because like one of the top big matches going into that WrestleMania was Otis and Dolph Ziggler. But it was great. Oh.
Honestly, I think the mistake they made was taking Money in the Bank off of Otis.
They did. I hated it. And I hated having Tucker turn on him at that time. Oh my goodness.
Say it right. Tucky.
Oh, speaking of people that we got to take off. All right. Like I mentioned Brady Booker before, and I have to bring this up because it was god awful, and he's a big motherfucker. So, first of all, put Rick Ross on TV every week. Just put him on every week. That was so funny. But here's my problem. I looked up Parker Boudreaux, who wasn't he in like the Trustbusters? It was the Trustbusters, right?
Yeah. Okay. And that just kind of went nowhere.
You had Sonny Kiss turn heel for no freaking reason, but whatever. So now
Sonny Kiss is off TV again.
Goodbye, Sonny Kiss. Mwah. See you later. So what we had happened was fucking Parker Boudreaux, who I'm going to say this right now. He looked very clunky in that exchange. He did not look good. I can see why WWE released him. Very slow motion on the Irish whip and just that whole beatdown sucked. And then you bring the other guy in who I don't know his name, but he apparently was a baseball player. He's got face tattoos. Whatever, the guy. And he's trained with Jay Lethal. He's green too. And then they did the thing with Swerve with the cinder block, kind of like Seth Rollins. Remember like Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose? Yeah, okay. That's what that reminded me of, but with a table. Oh my God. So what do you think about the moguls, right? What's it called? Moguls?
Mogul Associates or
Mogul Associates, whatever. So you have Rick Ross, Swerve, the face tatted guy, and Parker Boudreaux. Can you see the enthusiasm on my face? I hated that entire segment, Dan. The only big good thing about it was Rick Ross because it was funny.
Let me say this.
Go ahead.
I'm a big fan of Swerve,
Me too. It's kill shot, baby. Lucha Underground.
He doesn't need a stable. He doesn't.
He uses charisma.
Yeah, like the guy's money. Like there are some people that need it. I mean, I think they made the right call in having Swerve be the heel because, like, do you want to boo somebody like Keith Lee?
No, you don't.
No. I think it was the right call. They turned the right guy, and I don't know. Like, I was talking to a couple of the fellows today, and again, we always like to talk about, forbidden doors. Mm-hmm. If somehow there was ever a Forbidden Door WWE AEW show, it's not a match. I want a backstage segment. I want Danhausen. Mm-hmm. I want R-Truth. I want Santino Marella. And how do you end it? You end it with Ron Simmons walking into the frame and just saying, "Damn."
Comedy gold, man. But no, you're right. With the Swerve stuff, it's like the man. He also has outside ventures. Like he has his podcast.
Yeah,
he has his rap career. Rapping. He's rapping. Like, and it works. Like he is easily hateable. And I'm gonna say this right now. Hit Row needs somebody because and obviously the top dollar botch, but they need somebody, dude. The one thing that and we'll get this in the second episode, but the one thing that Triple H has done that I hate, the Hit Row thing. They need a vocal point. They need a mouthpiece. They need somebody vocal for them.
Yeah. You know what? Carmelo Hayes.
I'm right there with it. I've been saying that too. Like I said, you and I see a lot of the same similarities, but Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams are dynamo in NXT. But Carmelo Hayes with them works.
Yeah. And here's the thing. How many 4-person stables do you really have? Like,
not a lot.
So, do I think Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes can get over as a face team? Absolutely. Look at Carmelo Hayes. He's got the physique. He's got the look. He's the kind of guy that you can put on the side of the trucks, on the billboards. You can have him doing, the press events. You can have him, at the stock exchange. You can have him doing all that. Although not if the story of the sale happens.
Ugh.
That's a whole nother story for a whole nother show. I digress. And back to the point, Carmelo Hayes is money. Now, back to Swerve. Swerve is money. Mm-hmm. You look at guys, the flag of any promotion is your world title. You look at the WWE. Roman's is carrying the flag, and he's doing a damn good job doing it. MJF was the right one to carry the flag for AEW. Right call, right time. Now, do I think it would have been better had he defeated CM Punk? Absolutely. But, we digress. The thing I would tell Tony Khan is don't focus so much on bringing in people. Focus on who you have. Take stock of who you have. Like, put all the cards out on the table. Say, I got this guy, I got this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. Who's going to make me money? Swerve is somebody who, honestly, I think you could put the title on him, not right now, but I would say within a year. Within 365 days from now, yeah, I could see him being, the guy.
I think for me, and before we close this out, I look at professional wrestling. There's such a variety. We talked about a lot today.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of great stuff within the world of professional wrestling. WWE, AEW, Impact, whatever you watch, enjoy it. And I will say this because you brought her up earlier. Dixie Carter, Dixie Carter with her sarsaparilla, and Tony Khan with his White Claws. All right. There's always been that debate of who's worse because she comes from the Carter family with Panda Energy, and he comes from the Khan family with the inheritance and taking out the money, let him blow it now. And Dixie Carter, much like Tony, very much similarities. And here's the thing: people give crap about Dixie. You and I love Dixie. I love Dixie Carter, like such a sweet lady, but very naive. Yeah, but I don't think she's like. I don't think Tony Khan is crazy. But I think he's got a little bit up here. I think Dixie's kind of here, and he's like a little bit up here. He's got one more notch over her.
I will put it this way. Again, I've got massive amount of respect for, for both of them.
Yep.
Especially Dixie in that, she's a woman in a very male-dominated sport.
Mm-hmm.
And, she kind of came into it at a time when, like she kind of had to learn to be a promoter kind of on the fly. TNA was already a thing. So she kind of had to figure out like, okay, what do we do to make money here? Whereas you have AEW, where you have Tony Khan that has been a fan all his life, has business sense, has money, has kind of an idea. You can compare them, but you can't really. Because it's totally separate. It's not like with Vince, where Vince grew up in it. His father,
his grandfather.
He knows. Like Triple H has been in the business for years.
Yeah, since '93. Like he was trained by Killer Kowalski.
And he's a student of the game, so it's like, no pun intended.
No pun intended. But it's different, yeah, with Tony Khan with the fan thing. And here's the thing too, like when we laugh and we talk about this, we give Tony constructive criticism. Like here's the problem with him. And I think what the criticism is, Tony should not be focusing on what Mark in the Basement says on Twitter about that stuff. He needs to block out. He does not need to comment on everything. You know what it is too? So he grew up much like a lot of us did. He's a fan. He's that message board guy that likes to just shit stir. We all see them on message boards. That's Tony. He likes to be that shit stir, and he reads the newsletter, but with Meltzer, like he's that ultimate fan. But what I want to see more from Tony Khan is it's great to be a fan, more oomph. Yeah. Good to be a fan, more oomph. That's the title of this episode with Tony. More oomph, Tony.
Take risks. It's and my whole thing is, don't focus on bringing in the next big name, because here's the problem. I'm gonna briefly touch on the women's tag match and who's Saraya's partner. Is it probably gonna be Mercedes Moné or Sasha or whatever? Probably, but see, here's the thing. It's been hyped up so much that if it is literally anybody other than her, it's going to be seen as a letdown.
Well, isn't it? It's Toni Storm, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't know who it's gonna end up being. The problem is, he keeps promising, "Oh, I'm gonna have this major announcement." Don't tease an announcement. Just come out and make one.
We shall see. But I also will say one more thing AEW really forgot to talk about. Man, I have never been so really surprised, but also at the same time I'm happy. Like, I love these vignettes with Powerhouse Hobbs in the streets and talk about where he's coming for blood. Why didn't we get this 2 years ago when he was the face to talk about his brother got shot in a drive-by and he's just this baby face, and then he goes to be in a heel with Team Taz, and then he's just whatever. Then he's feuding with Wardlow out of mothballs for the TNT Championship. He's kind of been like going this way and that way, and now we have video packages. Like, this is the most interested I've ever been in Powerhouse Hobbs. Where was this Powerhouse Hobbs 2 years ago?
And the thing with Hobbs, Hobbs is another guy that has absolute money.
Works.
And he's somebody that if I'm Triple H, I do whatever I got to do to sign him. There are, I will say there are people that if I'm him, that I'm doing whatever I got to do to bring over. I'm bringing in Hobbs. I'm bringing in Starks. I'm bringing in MJF.
The Wardlows.
Wardlow even too. And, people say, oh, it's not about the money. It's not about the money.
It is about the money.
You offer them enough, and I really honestly think people might go, wait a minute. I mean, clearly Mox wouldn't go back because, he's happy with what he's doing. So, realistically, I think they're going to do it. And I think I would like to, in this next year, I would love to see Tony Khan continue to build the AEW brand. Focus on producing a quality show that makes fans want to tune in, compelling stories, try different things, different match types, and don't focus so much on what the IWC says. Talk to your guys, talk to people like Dustin that have been in the business for 40 years that, knows, the business, knows what works.
And I think before we even wrap this up, one final thing that we talk about people, like you talk about going, a lot of people staying. Miro, do you see him back in WWE in this calendar year, 2023?
There was a report over the summer that he had signed an extension. I don't know if that's true. You always hear stories about so-and-so signing an extension on their deal. Until that person actually says, hey, yeah, I signed a umpteen-year deal with, such and such company. Doesn't matter. I would love to see Miro front and center on AEW. The guy has so much talent. We saw that with Rusev Day. I mean, my God, he came out at WrestleMania in a freaking tank.
One of the most memorable WrestleMania moments in history against John Cena.
I think he should have gone over that night.
Me too, but, John Cena representing America, so America. No, okay. Here's the thing. Immense amount of talent. Here's why I hated when he came into AEW the first time. They brought him in as the best man with Kip Sabian, and then he's feuding with the best friends because, him and Kip Sabian are Twitch streamers, and they're on Twitch. They're fighting over video games like, Mom, he won't let me play the game. He's hogging up the video. That's what it felt like to me. They brought him in back-ass backwards, and then they bring this Redeemer out later on. Like, why couldn't we get that first and not have, Mom, he took over my video game? That's what it reminded me of, Daniel.
I enjoyed the Redeemer,
Me too.
Pick. I honestly enjoyed it. And, I thought we were going to get a kind of a thing between he and Malachi Black,
Yeah, well, we got the House of Black now back together, which rightfully so, and they're doing it the right way.
And I will say this. If, God forbid, if somehow hell freezes over and they get Punk back, I think you have the Elite win, the trios match, lights go down, you think that it's the House of Black, lights come back up, it's Punk and it's FTR, and they just destroy the Elite.
That, my friends, is how you make money. And turn a lot of the, like I said, personal stuff makes money. It makes the green.
Because there's the rumor that FTR is on their way out.
Yep. Well, they just lost the New Japan tag titles. They lost the AAA. They lost the ROH.
They've lost everything.
They lost everything.
But you know what? They are still the greatest tag team of all time, in my opinion. I don't care. Fight me, whatever. It's FTR.
I say yeah all the time, and it's funny, like watching them in WWE when like in NXT with Scott Dawson. Like I remember before they put Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder. Yes. And Dash Wilder together, like Scott Dawson was teaming with Garrett Dillon, who was Jody Christopherson's kid. Do you remember him teaming together?
Yeah.
He had potential, but Scott Dawson more clicked with Dash Wilder. And I like Jody Christopherson, but yeah, Garrett Dillon was not feeling it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what happened, but And it's not the same as, him and Dax Wilder. It's not.
Yeah. I've got a storyline designed for, if FTR goes back to the E, that honestly is going to be freaking money if that happens.
We shall.
I'm telling you, you got the Usos out in the ring. Saying they have run through every team possible. They have beaten them all. If there is a single team out in the back that thinks that they can step up, and you do a long shot to the entranceway, back to the Usos. Usos think that's what we thought. They start to get out of the ring, and what do you hear?
Say
yeah. And then you just see FTR show up. Then they walk themselves down to the ring. They get in the ring. They look at the Usos. They look at the belts. Back up at the Usos. And then because it's that time of year, when we see a certain sign, they point up to the sign.
I like it. Money.
Because honestly, who's going to beat the Usos at this point? Like, who is there?
Well, as of the time that we're recording this, they're facing Drew McIntyre and Sheamus tomorrow, so I don't see McIntyre and Sheamus beating them for the tag titles. So we shall see. No, we shall see. And that, my friends, is what we're going to see in the future. And you're going to see a lot more in this show, Uncaged, with yours truly, Mike Larkin and Mr. Daniel Crimmins. Tony Khan, more oomph. Please hit him up style. Oops. Hit him up style like Blue Cantrell. But I got to say, man, in this 4 years that we've seen AEW, we've seen in professional wrestling, there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of improvement. It's much like in life. Life is an art form, and we are all here to apply our crafts. Let's just continue to apply the craft and just talk some amazing and damn good professional wrestling, which brings us episode 2 next week, Daniel. We will be back. The Triple H era. We are going to be analyzing, dissecting, and deciphering, talking about Triple H and what he's done so far and what we think a Triple H Royal Rumble is going to look like, Mr. Daniel Crimmins.
I'm excited. Like, I am giddy right now. Like, because this is... You and I have talked with wrestling. Look at the wrestling bingo card of 2022. Look what we had. We had Forbidden Door. We had a New Japan AEW pay-per-view. We had Hell Freeze over when Vince McMahon retired. Now we are not 5 full days into the new year. We have the announcement that not only is he coming back, Vince McMahon has pulled an Emperor Palpatine and is back from the freaking grave. Not only that, he has announced that they are forming an exploratory process to sell the company.
A lot more of that and more in our next episode. So Daniel Crimmins, it's a big story. It's like mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. And we're going to cover that in the next episode. But Daniel Crimmins, before we close out, we've been mentioning them the entire time. What I want you to go do is check out TSK Discord, where Daniel Crimmins, Harold, Koshan Kyle, Moses Marquez, Robert Davis, they talk about the CM Punk Elite, much like we talked about here. Shout out to Max Wrestling and the boys. Check out our promo from Promo Series. We had a lot of fun. And thank you, Dan. That's always fun doing some promos with you.
Oh yeah, it's I think you and I we got some chemistry. We've told our story time and time again. We get it. We like to tell a story.
Yes, we do. And the story is going to be more of these damn episodes. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, and I have to say this because I was giddy. Like you were talking about giddy. I was giddy before we even got on the shizzo here. So this is our first episode. We talked about AEW in the world of wrestling. We're going to talk about the Triple H era and the Vince McMahon story in our next episode. Then we're going to talk about even more in-depth on Vince McMahon in one of our first part of our series here. And then we're going to talk about my personal favorite. I can't wait till we get that one. Since it is Royal Rumble season, folks, we are going to talk about the worst, what people are calling the worst WWE Championship match in Royal Rumble history. Yeah, that's right. I'm talking about 2004. Brock Lesnar versus Hardcore Holly. The one time he got a push for the WWE champion.
I mean, oh boy. Yeah, I actually remember that.
We're going to get to that, but it's Rumble season. It's going towards the road to WrestleMania. It's going towards the road to AEW's Revolution. It's a good time to be a professional wrestling fan. Subscribe to the YouTube. Subscribe to Max. Check out what Dan and I are doing here on the YouTube channel. Dan, do you have anything you would like to promote Instagram, Twitter-wise? Because that'll be in the description.
Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, check out the Discord discussion. As Michael Larkin had mentioned, it is myself, it is Robert Davis, Moses Marquez, Harold Hunter III, and it is Kyle Crichton. Kyle, if I mispronounced your last name, apologize. Where we discussed the CM Punk Elite debacle. And we also recorded a second episode last night. What is it? Well, you're going to have to tune in and find out.
Links will be in the description. You guys can check me out, SM Show on MCL92, and M Larkin, MB and Larkin _92 on the Instagram. Check me out with my work for Capital Championship Wrestling, Lingerie Fighting Championship. I'm all over the place. Daniel Crimmins, there is no other place I'd rather be than tonight than to talk about this with you, my brother, and we will be back next week. So, for Daniel Crimmins, DC and the place to be. He's freezing his ass off. I'm warm as hell, and it feels good. My name is Mike Larkin. My name is Mike Larkin. Okada, he hates your guts. You're a liar. You're a cheat. You're a no good son of a bitch. And we'll see you in the next episode. Good night, everybody.